Welcome back to the Real Estate Rockstars podcast. Our guest today is Will Penney out of Akron, Ohio. He has been a real estate agent since 1988, has sold over 2,500 homes, and has 5+ years where he's earned over $1 million in GCI. Will has been through it all. He's been through the buyer agency changes that happened back in the late 80s, the market crash in 2008. He's owned a brokerage. He's led multiple teams, hot markets, dead markets, you name it. He's been through it. And here is what you can expect to learn in today's show. The first 3 hires that you should make in your business in order and why, how to find and what to pay for a showing assistant, exactly what to say to buyers in regard to agency agreement and commissions, and the best free and easy way to stay in touch with your sphere of influence. Y'all, if you have not already gotten your Rockstars Mastermind tickets for 2025, the time is now. Hit me up on Instagram at The Shelby Show for the inside scoop, or check out the show notes to lock in your slot today. And while you're at it, guys, head over to YouTube and subscribe to our channel. Check us out there for a change. Look deep into our eyes during the show. It's not weird. It's super fun. And with that, Rockstars, welcome Will Penney. Will, if you were starting a team today from the ground up, how would you do it?
So I started my team in 1997. And basically it's because we had our first child and I didn't want to work nights and weekends. So I hired a showing agent and she was hourly. So that's what I would do again, because the biggest time drain in our business is showing houses. So if you can incorporate a good showing agent where you're not giving commissions away and you're just paying them outside of the commissions, then that, in my opinion, that's a better move than hiring an admin or a closing coordinator, because it allows you to not have to work nights and weekends. And that our biggest time drain in our business is showing homes. So that's where I would start. My second hire would be a listing manager, part-time. My showing agent, my listing manager, and my closing coordinator also sell houses. So I've got double duty, so they all make a 6-figure income. So that's, but the showing agent's definitely the first place I'd start.
Okay, I've heard that before from people, and the ones who do it successfully just like breeze right by, like hire showing agent. But I know that from the agent's, the listener's perspective who hasn't done it yet, they're like, how do I find this person? Like, how do I trust that this person is not going to blow, the showing with my client? And also, how do I communicate it to my client to make them feel like I'm not leaving them in the freaking dust, That's
a really good point. So what I did is I run my team like a doctor's office. So that's the mindset. So when I meet with a buyer and we do a buyer consultation, I let them know. I say, by the way, I do have a showing agent, Rebecca. She's been with me 17 years, and she's licensed, very competent. And in order for me to accommodate you and not be a one person if you've got an agent who's just a solo agent and they don't have somebody that can help coordinate showings, then that agent, if I'm showing a house to somebody else, I can't be with you. So Rebecca, actually, once we get our relationship off the ground and you sign the buyer representation agreement, then we're going to set up a search for you. And then I'm going to set up a group text with me, you, and Rebecca. I'm still going to be your main point of contact. What she does, though, is she's going to coordinate showing homes, getting you in houses quickly. And then once you find one, depending on if it's at night or whenever it is, if I'm available, I write the offer. If not, then she will. It's whatever to make it happen quick for you. So I always make it about them. And it's never been, I've had 3 showing agents over since 1997. I got my real estate license in 1988 when I was 19. But since 97, I've used a showing agent just so I don't have to show houses at night and on the weekends. So now I've got a full-time one, so I never show houses.
And where did you find Rebecca or the other 2?
So Rebecca was a part-time agent. I would just get, like, my listing manager ended up being brand new, but I would have a part-time agent in my office or out in the marketplace, they had a co-broke with, who's maybe struggling, but they know how to do the technical parts of the job. but maybe they want to supplement their income. And then I would tell them, you're going to do this for me, but then I'm also going to help you grow your real estate business. So that's how I did it. You just find a part-time agent or someone who's struggling, and who's going to turn down a $25 or $35 an hour part-time job showing homes for you?
That was my next question. I was like, how much do you pay her? So, okay. Basically she like clocks her hours and then it's $25, $35, dollars. Cause I know
now she's salaried, but
okay.
For a long time, from up to 2018, she came on full time. Before then, she was hourly. And I had, the reason hourly is important, because a lot of agents want to challenge me on this, is that if you tie it to the commission, then what is it going to be? 5% or 10%? And the problem with that is that their spouses, boyfriends, dad, mom, someone's going to say something at some point and say, wait a second, you're doing all the work, because they think that showing the houses is all the work. You're doing all the work and he's getting 90%. That happened to me when I first started I paid 10% of my commission to a showing agent. The first time I got pushback from a spouse accusing me of being greedy, I canceled the commission part and made it hourly. So back in the day, I made it $20 W-2. Always do it W-2, because otherwise they get to the end of the year, they file a tax return, they're 1099, they end up having to write a check for $1,126 and they quit.
They're like, I'm out of here.
They're like, screw this. I'm having to pay taxes on an hourly job. So I save them from themselves and I just make them W-2 part-time. It's easy. And then I started at 20. Then I had a showing agent, Maggie, back in the 2003. She was wonderful. Her husband was complaining that I only paid her 20 an hour. So I raised it to 35 and he shut up. So that's what I did. But you figure 8 hours on a Saturday is $280 at $35 an hour. So I could be home with my family. She's making 35 an hour, and it's 35 an hour is a good, I mean, if you're in an expensive part of the country, then you have to, you're going to have to make decisions on how much, whatever is reasonable. But paying $35 an hour to a showing agent is pretty good.
Yeah. It sounds like a win-win. I think another objection that I can actually hear listeners thinking is that she's going to blow the deal. Like, she doesn't care as much as I do. She can't, if the buyers mention something that, an experienced agent would dig into, it would be like a red flag to like, oh, we need to further this conversation. But a buyer, like a showing assistant, wouldn't necessarily. So have you experienced those problems? Was there training involved up front, or do you just pick the right personality to execute?
Well, you're never going to be able to hire another you, because another you isn't going to want that job, right? So this is just a leadership topic, because if you're going to scale and you're going to bring people into your world, they're not going to be perfect. But it's more about scaling. Do you want your nights and weekends back? Do you want to not have to spend all your time showing? Or do you want to have the perfect situation? And I had a showing agent for about 5 years back in the 2000s. She never sold a house on her own. She would open doors. She would be nice to them. They would look at the house. And then afterwards, I would say, by the way, when you're done, call me. Then they would call me. So I'm always communicating I'm not having her replace me at all. I just don't want to have to be the one opening doors and showing houses. Now, the longer they stay with you, then they end up being more effective at getting the people to make decisions, eliminating houses that they shouldn't be, that they shouldn't like, finding problems in a house that will come up at a home inspection and pointing that out to them. So they get better as time goes on. But if you want to be a solo agent and you don't hire someone to help you strictly because you think that people just want you and all of that, that's garbage. That's all in your head.
Yes, 100% agree. Okay, so we have the showing assistant. I think I nailed down the common objections that I hear agents having in that piece. So you also mentioned listing manager and closing coordinator. So with the listing manager, what's an overview of the duties that you have them do?
So in 2013, I hired my first listing manager. She was my rock star assistant that everyone talks about getting. And basically, up till that point, everyone was telling me, oh, you need to get a closing coordinator first or a TC. That doesn't take as many hours in a week as showing. Like if you look at the time in our career that we're spending on the most of our time on, it's going to be showing houses. Would you agree with that?
Well, it depends. And so when I built my organization, I did it differently. I did the TC first. So, which I don't regret, but I do love to hear other perspectives. So
if somebody's buyer heavy, like if you've got an agent who's working with a lot of buyers, hiring a TC first, first of all, there's for $250, you can hire a closing coordinator, right? There's agencies now, either overseas or we have them locally, where they worked at a title company and then broke off and started their own business, and they charge $250 or $300 a file from contract to close. So my position is if you can replace it with a VA or with someone local who'll do it piecemeal, then you can't do that with showings. So that was my mindset. And gotcha. I don't have to, and I'm not closing deals nights and weekends, right? I can work on that in the morning by myself. Like I figured that I could do even on 100, the most houses I've ever sold personally myself without any help is 110 in a year. So that's been my personal most. But even with that, 2 a week, you can handle the closings in the morning yourself. But what I didn't want to do, because I had kids, was have to show houses after work an all day Saturday and all day Sunday. So my personal choice, because I was married with a kid and then another one, was the big night and weekend time sucks aren't TC activities, they're showing activities. And I remember the last part-time year I had, I shouldn't say this because she'll remember, but I took home over 500 grand and she made 8,600 showing houses. And that worked out to about 3 or 4 hours a week of showing homes is all, right? So for me, that was again, she turned into a full-time employee, but when it was part-time, you're never spending more than $10,000 or $12,000 a year showing houses. And then you get your nights and weekends back. So for me, if I can pay a TC $250 a file versus having someone take showings off my plate, I just chose to do it that way. Now
I want both.
Listing manager.
Yeah,
right.
Totally. So listing
manager. 2013, I brought one of my wife's friends in. She got licensed, and basically her job was to measure houses, put lock boxes on, coordinate photographer, fill out the input sheet, put it in the MLS, set up showings, do all of that, make flyers, drop them off. And again, I only replace activities in my world where people don't expect me to be there. So I'm still the one negotiating offers, getting listings signed, communicating with them after a home inspection. I don't hand any of that off. I'm still doing that. And I think that's important. I think a lot of agents, where they make a mistake is your referral-based business is based on the relationships you have. And if you just hand off your buyers or people that you know to other members on the team, they're not going to remember you later. They're going to remember them.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So listing manager, you mentioned you have measure houses, the lock boxes, coordination for photography, staging, whatever has to happen, putting it into the MLS, creating flyers. Got it. So that's that position. And then I think that pretty much everyone within the industry knows what a closing coordinator or a transaction coordinator does. So we have those pieces in place. What was the next one that you brought into your world?
I only have one other agent. So the biggest team that I had was 6. So I had that. My team agents that support me also sell homes. So my showing agent last year also sold 37 houses. So she showed my buyer clients houses. That's what her salary was for. And then she also sold about $8.5 million worth of real estate that she got paid on. So she makes a 6-figure income. So she's doing awesome. They still do this stuff for me. My listing manager, she was with me 10 years. She's now solo. She stayed at the company, but she went out on her own because she just better for her. But, she was with me 10 years, but her last year with me, she did all my listings, and I go away to Florida. I'm in Ohio, but I go to Florida 2 months a year. So we go January and February. So with this team structure, I'm able to do that because I can still talk to them about pricing, do buyer consults, but then I've got the people in place to do on the ground stuff.
I think it makes a lot of sense.
It works well because, like, I was on another podcast with Jeff Cohn, great guy, Elite Team Building, and he had called my team set up like the Navy SEAL type team. I've just chosen to stay in operations because I wanted the referrals from those people. And if you replace everything that you do, I think we end up outsourcing our key competencies as real estate agents. Like, we don't want to prospect anymore. So we either hire a VA or we pay for leads. We don't want to stay in touch with our past clients. So we set up email drip campaigns. And I think we end up working ourselves out of the best life we could have if we actually just stayed involved. The things that made us successful, if we keep doing those and then hand off the stuff that people don't care if it's you or not, such as lock boxes, flyers, measuring, showing homes. They really don't. I mean, I'm going on 30 years with a showing agent. No one has ever complained that I'm not there, because I explain it to them at the beginning that this is, I hire this person. I hire this person so that we can be available to more than one person. Because if I'm doing everything and you want to see houses today at 4 o'clock and I say, sorry, I'm with someone else, you're going to be angry. You're going to be frustrated.
Totally.
So that's what I do.
That it makes total sense. And so I want to loop back to something that you mentioned earlier. You were talking about, right before we dug into the showing agents, you were talking about, I get the buyer representation agreement signed prior to, turning it over.
Yeah.
But the buyer representation agreement, that's like a hot topic right now. We're in unsteady times in a lot of ways. So like, what do you have thoughts on that conversation with the NAR stuff that just came out? Or what should team leaders be focusing on with their agents to prepare them for what's coming?
So I'll break that down into 2 parts. What should team leaders be focusing on my thoughts. So my thoughts are, I started using a buyer representation agreement in 1991. And the reason I started using it in 1991 was because in the late 80s, if you look, the Department of Justice jumped into our business then, so 35 plus years ago. And because back then, all agents represented sellers. It was sub-agency. There was no buyer representation. So what happened was these buyers were working with agents, looking at homes that other brokerages had for sale. And this is pre-internet, but it doesn't matter. And they were bleeding on the agent, telling them how much they pay for the house, telling them their hopes and dreams. And then to find out later that agent wasn't even representing them. They were a sub-agent of the listing agent, and they got paid. So once again, the attorneys jumped in, recruited plaintiffs for their class, sued real estate brokerages, and I think the NAR, and they ended up getting agency laws changed. So it went from sub-agency to buyer agency. So back then, in Ohio, we got an agency disclosure in 1989, and that was a byproduct of these lawsuits. Okay. So, but what happened back then, a lot of the brokerages, the old school ones, they did not want to change. Their mindset was, well, if you're not going to represent our seller, then I'm not going to pay you. So Shelby, if you're an agent showing one of my listings and my broker is only paying sub-agents, but your broker wants to be proactive and forward thinking and represent just buyers. Well, in the MLS, we used to have for about 5 years, there were 2 co-broke fees. S, which is sub-agent, it would say 3, let's say, and B, buyer agent, would say 0 sometimes. So you would be in a situation where you're representing your buyer. You've told them how you represent them, but I'm not allowed to co-broke with you. So, which is kind of like what's happening right now. So in order to combat that, and now we're talking 1990, 1991, we would have to get a buyer representation agreement signed with a paragraph that authorized us to collect a seller paid fee and negotiate for a seller paid fee on the buyer's behalf. I would call up you if you're the listing agent and say, hey, Shelby, I'm going to be showing your listing on 123 Oak Street today, and I'm going to reject your offer of compensation in the MLS. And if my buyer likes it, then I'll take it up with them. And then they would like it. I would make a note on the MLS sheet that I rejected your offer of compensation. And then on the contract, I would write on behalf of the buyer, seller shall pay EXP Realty or Century 20. I was at Century 21 at the time. Century 21 Akron Town and Country Realty, a buyer representation fee in the amount of 3% of the sale price. So that's how we combated it back then. And at the same time, if you want to make it even worse, RE/MAX was growing rapidly back then. We had two big independent brokerages in our area, Smythe Kramer and Realty One. They had 70% market share. For 6 years, okay? Now, right now, we haven't even gotten to this change yet. But for 6 whole years, if you were at RE/MAX in Northeast Ohio, between Akron and Cleveland, Ohio, near Lake Erie, and you sold a Smythe Kramer or Realty One listing, they 70% market share, you would get half of the normal co-broke fee because they didn't like the fact that RE/MAX was 100% brokerage. So they tried to squash them by only paying a half a co-broke fee for 6 years.
Oh my God.
So we had the sub-agent thing, right? A lot of brokers didn't want to pay buyer agents. And then on top of it, if you were at RE/MAX, which I was for 2 years, then you would only get half a co-broke fee on these others. So we were forced to use buyer representation agreements like decades ago, just so that we could get paid. Well, fast forward 35 years and we're right back in the mud again. So I have a little bit different mindset because I went through that once before. And anybody else who was in the business back then, most agents that are still in the business are in their 70s. I just happened to get in when I was, 18, 19 years old. So I don't think it's going to be a huge deal. And if it is, we're all in it together. I think what we need to do is articulate our value with a buyer, which I've been doing for a long time, to get them to sign a representation agreement, explain how we get paid, explain the options. And most of the time, they're not going to have to pay us directly. You're going to have, I think through this transition period, you're going to have some knucklehead real estate agents that are going to try to take cheap listings and get away with not paying a buyer agent. But then they're going to have to deal with it because the agents are going to call them and say, hey, Shelby, how much are you offering on that? And you're going to say nothing. I'm going to be like, damn. Right? See what I mean? So I think we're going to go through this period of time where people try things out. And then I think it's going to level out and it'll be what it'll be. And I think we're going to lose a ton of real estate agents.
I think we are too. I have a question though. You mentioned that you guys have been doing this for a while where you are able to articulate your value to the buyer. And I think that is something that when people are freaking out about what's happening is they don't know what to say. They don't know how to articulate their value. So could you walk us through how you explain that you're worth, just give me the spiel here.
Right. So my tool for your toolbox is going to be my buyer presentation checklist. So I'll send that to you. Basically, I got a dumb little checklist, man. I just have the buyer come in. I have an intake form that just talks about the first thing we talk about is what they're looking for, their motivation, why are they moving, where do they want to be, what price range, did they talk to a lender, all that stuff. And then I say, okay, before we get too far into this, do you mind if we take a moment and go through the last mile? Okay, which is from the time you say you want a house to closing day. So the front of my sheet talks about once we find a house, the offer process, negotiation process, all of that. Then I flip it over and I say day one, and it talks about send contract to the loan officer, deposit your earnest money, and then it goes through negotiate, the inspections. And then we go through. Then when I'm done with that, so now it's been 3 pages, intake form, search process, offer process, and then closing process. I say, do you have any questions? No. Based on what I've talked about, do you want me to help you through this? And they say, yeah, of course. And I say, okay, well, do you mind if we take a moment and go through the paperwork? Just like when you hire any professional, whether it's an accountant or an attorney or whatever, we've got some paperwork that talks about how we get paid, what my job is, what my obligations to you are, what your obligations to me are. Do you mind if we go through that? And then I just go through the representation agreement. And I make sure I talk about, I always said most of the time, because lately, I'm sure you see it where you are. Are you in North Carolina or?
I was. I'm in Lexington, Kentucky now.
Oh, you're in Kentucky. Okay. Yeah. So I'm sure during the hot market, there was, you'd have agents offering one. That's why I get so worked up about this so-called cartel that we're in, with all these headlines.
Yeah.
the real estate cartel. I mean, that's dumb. I mean, we have 1% co-brokes in our MLS for the last few years. 1.5. You get some agents or they'll graduate at 3% of the first 100, 2% of the next 300, and then 1% of the remainder. I mean, they do stupid stuff like that all the time. And so there's no control. But because of that, I tell the buyer, most of the time, the listing agent will pay us a fee, part of the fee that they collect from the seller. On the odd occasion where they're either not paying enough or they're not paying anything, then I'm going to talk to you about that before it actually happens, because I'll find out before we see the house. And then if there's an amount that has to be paid different than what they're paying, then I'll let you know and you'll understand it. And we'll ask for a closing cost concession, or we'll ask for the separate amount on the contract. But I'll make sure that you understand so there's no surprises with the money. I've never had anybody go, well, I'm not signing that. I haven't had that happen. So, and keep in mind, I'm one of the few agents that uses a representation agreement. So they can go out and find an agent who's better looking than me and more energetic and happier and not have to sign anything. Right? So, and I'm still getting them signed. So now that everybody's going to have to get something signed, then I think buyers are going to start grading agents just like sellers do. And they're going to pick them based on experience and the number of reviews they have online. Once they have to sign something and they may have some money on the line, I think it's going to be just like hiring a listing agent.
I think the way you frame it with essentially like in most occasions, the listing agent will pay us. And with this change, it's like, I will do everything within my power to make sure that the negotiations lead to the listing side paying for my commission. But in the off chance that it doesn't work out that way, at that point in time, we will readdress the commission. But this is, I think that makes it a little softer because I think that the reason why agents are probably freaking out is because they're like thinking that they have to look at their buyer and be like, you owe me X amount of thousands. And then that will just like shock, you know what I mean? So I think, and that's why I'm so curious about like exactly what you say and how it works, because knowing how to frame it in a way that is accepted but flip side, it's like, you also don't want to downplay it too much if times do change and
right.
You know what I mean? So I guess with that,
what do you mean I have to pay you? That it's like, you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah,
that's why I have that discussion at the beginning. But for sale by owners, home builders for the last 2 years in areas like most of like the Triangle in North Carolina, I have friends and agents that are there. Builders were paying like $1,000 or nothing at all to a buyer agent because they had inventory and they could sell it. So builders are like, I'll pay you when the market's slow and I won't pay you when the market's busy. So there's been plenty of situations where buyers have to get paid by the buyers have to pay their agent to represent them on a new home or on a for sale by owner. I've got one right now where a buyer is paying me 3% to write the offer on a for sale by owner. He's not doing it kicking or screaming. He knows that we provide a lot more value than an attorney would in that situation.
Yeah. And I agree. And I think it's a little easier when the buyers that you're working with are at a point financially. Maybe they're not like first time home buyers who are really trying to like scrape every penny together to even get like an FHA 3.5% down payment, or, you know what I mean? And I think that when you're having those conversations with the first time home buyers who might not have the money, that's when it becomes even more challenging. And speaking of that, do you think that the lending rules will change for the amount that like buyers contributing to the clients?
I think commission? We live in a country of workarounds. And the only reason that closing cost concessions exist with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and HUD and VA is because buyers don't have the money. And if a buyer has to pay their lender fees and the down payment, then many times, especially first-time home buyers or people with lower income, they're not going to be able to do it. It's going to stop the entire process in its tracks. So, FHA is 6%. VA, I think, is 6%, isn't it?
Right now, it's 0 for
No.
buyer contribution.
No, VA, though, you can't get a contribution on a VA deal?
The buyers cannot pay a commission on a VA deal.
Oh no, yes. But I'm saying the closing costs.
Gotcha.
Yes.
I don't know.
So VA and FHA, I think the seller is allowed to pay up to 6% of the buyer's expenses on VA and FHA. 5% down conventional, I think it's 3%. Then it goes up to maybe a little bit more than that on a higher down payment conventional deals. But those only came about because that was a workaround created by lenders to soften the blow to buyers so that they could get in. As this moves on, I mean, the housing market, as we saw back in 2008, 9, and through 2012, the housing market can either shore up or take down the economy in the United States. I mean, it's over 25% of the GDP. So it's ironic to me that the DOJ, Department of Justice back in the 80s was saying that we needed to represent buyers. And now they're saying that the buyers have to pay us. I hear all of this noise about, well, buyers aren't going to pay you. I believe that some will go straight to the seller, but you're a very busy agent. In 2021, when you've got a listing with 25 offers on it, did you find yourself getting a lot of calls directly from panicked buyers saying, can I just buy the house directly through you? Did that happen a lot?
Are you asking me? Actually, no.
Yeah.
It didn't.
That's what I'm saying. So during the busiest market ever, where it was almost impossible, a buyer getting a house in 2021 was like a Tough Mudder. They'd have to go through so many pitfalls and jump through so many hoops and have to not have an inspection and appraisal gaps and give up one of their kids and pay the seller's commission. I mean, there were, like Austin, Texas, they had buyers paying part of the commission to get picked. It's like, so during a time like that, you would think that would be the time that buyers, if they really wanted to not be represented, that they would go directly to the listing agent. And I can count on one hand in a whole 2 years where a buyer reached out to me in a panic and said, can I get my offer accepted? But they also had an agent. They were just calling me to say, I just wanted to introduce myself and
to beg
because we're writing an offer. But they still weren't going rogue, right? They weren't going rogue and calling sellers directly or calling the listing agent directly. So I think that this is going to calm itself down. A year from now, this will be the new norm, however it plays out. But maybe I'm naive, but I think there's going to be workarounds. And I think agents, the ones that are going to have a terrible time are the ones where the house is the draw and they're there just to open a door and they never have to talk about money. They just have to write a high offer. So all they're doing is convincing buyers to pay more. They're not having to have any tough conversations about anything. And those agents are going to really struggle. I think, human beings are really bad at adopting good habits and communicating. And those of us that can do it are going to thrive. And I think we could lose everyone I talk to thinks we could lose 40% of the middle of the road agents. I think they're going to evaporate.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yes. Yeah, I've said that before too, where I honestly think it'll be healthy for our industry, where it's like if you were just floating, and I know it's hard to hear, if listeners are out there, but like I really think that it will strip a lot, it will cleanse a lot from our industry. But yeah, I was going to ask a different question.
Yeah, we could talk for hours on that. I mean, coming off of a year and a half where a lot of agents making 40 to 70 grand a year have a very heavy buyer business, and their paychecks are getting farther and farther apart. It's so hard to get an offer accepted even now. They don't have to talk about getting paid. At least they know if they get the offer accepted, they're getting paid. Now it's like recovering from a car accident and now you get COVID. It's like and the underlying market, the economy, they can go get a $20 an hour job. During the housing crash, we lost half the realtors then, in our market anyway, lost half the real estate agents, got out. And that was during a time where we had 11 and 12% unemployment. They still left. Where'd they go? Like jump off cliffs? At least now they can go work at Kohl's for $23 an hour. They can go to Target. You can do a closing shift at McDonald's for $30 an hour. I mean, there's signs up at every McDonald's.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly. So I think we're going to lose all those. And then it just becomes like, as the market tightens, you have fewer agents and the market expands and you get more agents. And I think that we're going to end up having the transaction to agent ratio is going to just potentially double. That's what maybe I'm wrong, but that's what I think will happen.
We heard it here, guys. We'll mark his words. But okay, Will, let's just say that you are a real estate agent. Maybe you're a team leader out there and you don't want to struggle anymore. But right now you are struggling to stay in touch with your past clients, maybe your sphere of influence. Do you have any advice for those agents?
My entire business is built on our relationships are the currency of our business. And I didn't make that up, but that is the fact. Our business is like a multi-level marketing business, because if I sell Shelby a house and she tells her parents that she had a great experience, then at some point your parents are going to call me. Or if you have a workmate, you're going to have them call me. So that is where the true value of our relationships lie in this business. And that's how I've been able to stay relevant for 36 years and still, doing well. But I've got people in my database from the 1990s that are now on Facebook, right? First guy I ever sold a house to in 1988 is now a Facebook friend, and he started sending me business again. So we stay in touch. We call and text our past clients at least quarterly, always offering something of value, a list of contractors, a shredding event that we're having. We use our client events as a reason to call and offer value. We have a pie giveaway around Thanksgiving. But think of things of value, a report on how to get your landscaping in order, or things to, whatever it is, find some value, and that's a reason to call, right? So that's what we do. I do a bomb market update every 2 weeks. I turned that into a weekly newsletter, which I put like things to do in our area. But the biggest thing that I do right now to stay in touch, because the average screen time on a phone is 7 hours and 4 minutes a day. Mine's higher than that, probably. I don't want to say what it is.
That's nuts.
I scroll. Yeah, it's nuts. So it's very hard for if you're a real estate agent and you think you can send out a football calendar and maybe a flag on July 4th, and you think that's going to be enough to have them remember, you've lost your mind. You've lost your mind. That's not enough. You can't call them every day. You can't text them every day. You can't email them every day. But if you're not staying in touch with people almost weekly somehow on social media, then I think that you're not going to get the amount of referrals and repeat business that you deserve. So one thing that we did, we started a private Facebook group. I mean, we're all on Facebook groups. Real Estate Rockstars has a Facebook group. So I started a Facebook group 4 years ago. Now we have we use it like a CRM, and I've got almost 1,000 past clients in there. And every day we post engaging content, questions. What's your favorite Mexican restaurant? Tell us who your favorite contractors are. Where do you take your dogs to play? All that kind of stuff. Pictures of 4 different front doors. Which one do you like better? So 4 days a week we post. We get 20 to 70 comments because a Facebook group, the algorithms aren't fighting you like your personal Facebook page. Facebook only has 3 products: business page, personal page, and a group. So Facebook page has tons of algorithms to stop. They don't want you to be overwhelmed by all 5,000 of your friends. So because of that, they only show you posts from people that you have tight relationships with that they determine. In a Facebook group, that's not the case. So, like if you're in a Facebook group, you'll see hundreds and hundreds of people commenting. That's because Facebook encourages groups. If you can get people into a group, then they know that people will stay on the platform longer and they can show them more ads. That's the whole idea behind it with Facebook. So I think there's like 600 million groups, something like that. 1.7 billion Facebook active users are in at least one group. So we started a group because it's the easiest way to engage. Got all our past clients in there. Our process is we get a new client, we Facebook friend request them, invite them into the group. So now we use that as a CRM. So now I think last year I made 50 grand just from our Facebook group, because now we're getting people, once they get in the group, they see us every day. Does that make sense? I know I talk fast.
No, it's good. And I'm taking notes. But Okay. So you mentioned past clients, but you also mentioned it's a part of your process where it's a new client gets a Facebook request and then added to join. So is it everyone that you guys are potentially working with, or is this like once they close, it's a part of your like post-closing procedures to add them?
We use it like a CRM. So anyone that I run a lot. I know you're a huge CrossFitter. I run about 40 miles a week and I'm in a couple of running groups. Every one of my running friends that's a Facebook friend, I invite them into the group. So everyone I run into, I ask them if they're on Facebook. I tell them that I have a friends and family Facebook group. I invite them in. Social proof's amazing because then they see that there's other people that have worked with us before commenting. So that validates us, right? Like if you're in a group and you see other people and you know they're all Will's clients or people he knows and they're saying positive things. So we use it as a CRM. I got my head like this is an interactive live CRM, a Facebook group. So I do everything I possibly can to get everybody in there.
What's the group called?
My group is Penney Group EXP Realty. Penney Group Friends and Family EXP Realty.
Okay. So anyone you come in contact with, anyone that your team comes in contact with gets the Facebook invite and then requested added to the group. And then once they're in the group, like what is the top say the purpose of the group is?
Just to keep everything together,
just like
everybody
spot.
together.
But like when I'm joining, when I'm adding, like what am I expecting to see in there? Is that you listed it out earlier, but basically it's just friends and family hanging out.
And it's just fun comments. We have some caption this, we have contests, we have different architectural styles. What do you think of this new color? Like, when they started using turquoise or blue to paint cabinets, I posted a picture and said, hey, what do you think of these blue cabinets? And we get 60 comments. Mm. And so we get a ton of engagement.
Are you the one who is running it or do you have one of who's running it?
No, I do it.
You do it.
I do it. Yeah. Cause you can post, Facebook groups have a calendar, like a scheduler. So you can I post 20 times a month and I lay it all out one time. It takes about 30 minutes.
Okay. Do you ever do any direct calls to action or is it they just see the title and know that you're in real estate and that's where referrals and more business comes from? Or is it like which of those?
Yeah, about once a month. Very good question. Once a month we'll say, hey, selfish plug. If you know anybody who's looking to buy or sell a house, please don't forget to connect us. I don't use the word refer anymore. Just because I think it's cliche. So about once a month, but the rest of the time it's just fun. Because again, Facebook group posts just show up in your feed. It's not like they're trapped in a room, right? So I just think the Facebook groups are a wonderful tool. And this is, if you can use it to stay in touch with your past clients in your sphere because of the way they keep them engaged, and Facebook gives you all these analytical tools. You can see who's the most active. You can thank your top contributors. It automatically welcomes new every week. It sends me who's new in the group and you can just click and post it. I mean, Facebook is very selfish. They know that members of groups stay on the platform longer. So they let me use a group for free. And then what we started doing, I had a bunch of agents want to get in my group. I don't let any real estate agents in my group, obviously. But I started a company 3 years ago, Social Orchard, and I help other agents do the same thing. And we give them the content that we use in our group. And I've got quite a few agents that have successful groups that they're using now too. And
where can they go? And I'll ask this at the end, but just like a plug now, like where can they go if they want more information on that?
Oh, I appreciate that. Socialorchard.com. Socialorchard.com.
Easy. Okay, perfect. Okay, Will, before we had to wrap up, what did we miss? What did we not talk about that you think is an important point?
Well, we talked about, as someone who's been in this business, I will beat this to death. Between now and July, if you're a team leader, because I didn't answer that question. If you're a team leader, you need to be getting first of all, your team agents are scared, especially if you're a lead driven. If you get Realtor.com or Zillow leads, They're really worried about how that's going to work. Like what happens when a realtor.com person calls and they want to see this house, but I have to have them sign a representation agreement first. First of all, we can't control what they're going to do to make that work. I don't think that OpCity, which is owned by Realtor.com, which is owned by News Corp, which is owned by Rupert Murdoch, a freaking billionaire. I don't think that they're going to let this all fall apart. I think that they're going to start doing their part to educate buyers on the platforms, Realtor.com and Zillow, the necessity of having a buyer agent and how you're probably going to have to sign a representation agreement. I think that they're going to try to create a soft landing for us. But right now, if you're a team leader, you need to be coaching your team agents on articulating. Up to this point, they've just been opening doors and writing contracts. So you need to give them confidence around slowing the process down. You need to get a buyer presentation together that has an intake form, an explanation of the search process, your role in that process, potential pitfalls, the offer process, the closing process, and you use that as your presentation. And at the end, so you need to use now and until then a time to build a system, build a presentation around your buyers, around your buyer agents and your buyers, so that and get them to start using it now. Don't wait until July. You want to make sure that they're using this stuff before they need to. It's like when you binge eat Thanksgiving. But January 1st, I'm going to start working out. July, this is not the time to start taking things seriously. You should be working this into your process now and getting a feel for how the feedback you're going to get, any pushback you're going to get, so that your agents, you can start educating them and getting them used to this, because otherwise your team could fall apart. Do you know what I'm saying?
Totally.
If we're sending them to the wolves, I was joking with a buddy of mine the other day. This is no different than I'm standing here at a bar. I don't go to bars, but I got my arm around my buddy and there's a beautiful girl at the bar. I'm like, listen, all you got to do is walk up there and say hi to her and get her to go on a date with you. I mean, some guys would be like, no problem. 90% of them would be like, there's no chance. But if they have to do it, think about how the kind of anxiety that's going to create for agents if they have to do these uncomfortable things. So you need to train them on this now and don't take it for granted. I mean, that's what you need to do. And if you can articulate your service, break it down in a presentation, make it a process, and then do role playing with your agents. That is what we should be doing right now, in my opinion.
And luckily for you guys, if you're listening and you're like, man, I need to do that, but I would love a framework. So Will is providing his breakdown of how he does it for the toolkit. So just a reminder, go to realestaterockstarsnetwork.com and get that tool from Will. And okay, Will, we're headed to the wrap up questions. What is your favorite app or tool?
CapCut. I love CapCut for editing videos.
It's a big fave.
That's my favorite app right now.
Perfect.
I think.
What events are you going to in the next 12 months?
I went to the Cheplack live event last week. John Cheplack's a coach, and I went to a team building team event with him last week in Nashville. These were teams doing 1,000 to 2,000 transactions a year. And by the way, everyone listening, guys, none of them were scared. They're like, it's going to work itself out. There's no trends showing that we're going away. None of this is about us being replaced by streaming. You know what I mean? So we don't need to be worried. We just need to be smart. I hate to keep bringing that up, but that's what we need to be doing. And so I went to that event. I'm going to another one of his in June because I really like John Cheplack. I go to all the EXP national events because I think they're really good.
It's so funny. I've been in EXP since 2019 and I've never been to any of their events. So I was just talking, one of our guests the other day was joking with it that I think that this is my year. 2024 is the year I'm going to EXP Con. Yeah. Anyway, so I'll see you there.
The regional rallies are really good. EXP Con's going to be in Miami.
Cool.
I had my own brokerage for 21 years, by the way. So I had my own company doing 50 plus million a year in sales with 5-6 people. No, so if everyone thinks I'm just a loudmouth, I have very little confidence. Like if you took me into your box or whatever you guys call that place where you go tear yourselves up, I would fail miserably. I can do 40 push-ups, but I couldn't do one of those. I've seen your videos. You're insanely strong. I couldn't do that, but I couldn't, my comments around real estate, I truly believe my confidence isn't hollow. It's based on 36 years of hanging out, doing this, seeing the trends, and I really think we're all going to be okay.
And I really love hearing your opinions and perspectives on that, because there's something with like having lived through so many different changes. Like I didn't even, know the details of what happened in the late 80s, and the fact that also there was such changes. Of course, I knew there was such changes back in the crash, like 2008 era. And it's just cool to hear that you've lived through it all and understand what is required to come out and be successful on the other side. And it is refreshing to hear. So I appreciate it. I don't think you're long-winded in that regard at all. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not trying to be a know-it-all. I'm just trying to give people confidence. So as long as you do your job and you can break your services down and communicate clearly, you're going to be just fine. How
can listeners help you in your business?
You can go to socialorchard.com. You can check out our Facebook tools. That's really good. You can follow me. I'm such a loser. I've got 400 followers on Instagram. I can't get it off the ground. It sucks. I can't do it. I'm a terrible influencer. But if you want to follow me on Instagram, I've got 423 followers. I think 170 are from India.
Nice.
So I don't.
Very good. Well, dude, we've had some like really good Instagram guests on lately. I've gotten into like the BAM, like the broke agent media world. And it seems like every agent who's crushing it.
I listened to all the episodes.
Oh, okay. I was going to be like I'm like taking notes on all of their stuff. It's really, really impactful. And, but anyway, you're already listening.
Yeah, but you've got what? Don't you have like 10,000 or more? How many followers do you have?
It's like 8,500. So
yeah, you suck. I've got 423. I've got 423.
Dude, you're gonna get at least three off this episode.
They're not even in the country. They're not even in the country. I can't.
We all have our own strengths, Well,
right. That's not one of mine.
Okay. My last question is, where can people find you? So let's drop that. What is your Instagram handle, and what is the best way for people to reach out to you?
My Instagram handle, I've got two Instagrams, but the one's Penney Group EXP. That's our real estate one. But my other one is the Will Penney. It's Penney, WILLPENNEY. Same thing on Facebook. You can send me a message through Instagram. I try to be really helpful. So I love helping agents at this stage. And I think I've been, going through the housing crash with two kids in private schools was a very scary time for me. But, we survive all of it. I mean, you just have to get up every day, and it's like you do with your workouts. I mean, there's some days that you don't want to do it, and you do it anyway. In this business, I think now's the time you got to do stuff you don't want to do and do it over and over and over again and get good at it. And you got till July.
Yeah. Do the boring stuff, put in the work. Well, Will, that is all we have for today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Listeners, go and get him past this 423 mark on Instagram. Please go show him some love. And while you're on there,
that'd be great.
Yeah, do it. Hang out with me and Aaron, the owner of the show. We are The Shelby Show, and Aaron and Mujastaki. We love to hear from you. And otherwise, guys, sorry. Go on, Will.
No, I just think you're awesome. I think that I love seeing young, really successful people like you. That's what energizes me. And I think the world of Aaron, because he's so successful and nice.
Totally.
That's why, he had me on this show twice before. I just love the Real Estate Rockstars community, and I'm really getting very fond of you. I think you've got a lot to offer.
Thank you. That's so nice. Thanks, Will. And guys, Real Estate Rockstars, that's all we have for today. Thanks for listening.